All right, so I wanted to do a little video on the flower bed, one of my more epic failures. A lot of what I do here has been an experiment. I did a video on this back line, which the whole thing was an experiment. It turned out better than I thought, but I have experiments that turn out pretty much like I think they're going to turn out. But I want to try it out to see if it does. This particular experiment was like so. We had a certain goal, which was to bring in pollinators. We wanted to do it with drought-resistant or native plants, but we also wanted to be able to make money from harvesting a crop rather than selling plants and plant starts and seeds, but actually something that yields a crop. So in other words, cut flowers. Cut flowers is big business for small-time farmers here in this area, and it might be a way to, beef up that profit if somebody is interested in making their yard make a profit, because I don't think I've mentioned this, but another goal of this yard is to make a profit. The idea behind it was, can I not only get rid of the yard and benefit the environment and supplement my grocery bill, or maybe completely feed my family all the produce they need with it, but also can I turn something that usually costs money, which yards usually cost money, you got to mow it, you got to fertilize it, to take care of, make it look like it does in most suburban areas, and this is a suburban yard. Can I convert it from something that costs money to something that makes money, even if it only makes $100 a year, but it's better than costing me money? Okay, that's the idea behind it, and the answer is yes. It's pretty easy to do that. If you're trying to make enough profit to completely replace your income and never have to work again, now that's a completely different story. But if you're just trying to make a supplemental income stream, or just simply make it to where your yard is no longer an expense, this is exactly what I would advise, if you can get away with it wherever you live. But the cut flower experiment did not work. I don't know of any native cut flowers that would work. So we're going to convert this bed to simply what I was going to do in the beginning, which is just a native flower bed, native wildflowers. And we're going to just not worry about the cut flower business unless we do roses, because the rose family is heavily represented in this ecosystem. And as a result, roses do great here. And they provide, if you get the heritage varieties, they provide rose hips, which are edible. So it's like 3 ways you win. You can sell baby roses, you can sell roses, and you can eat the rose hips. So in another video, I may have covered all the flowers that we had in here. I'm just going to cover the survivors. Dianthus. Pollinators they're not particularly thrilled with dianthus. I rarely see them on there, probably because they're not native. I have this ground cover. I may have said it in another video. I don't remember what the name is. It lived, little purple flowers. It's good at keeping the Bermuda from growing in. As like a rhizome barrier. Same with this dianthus. And the roses. Both roses made it just fine. I had white sage. It made it through Snowmageddon, but died the following spring. I guess it was too dry. Now, on watering, on this farm, I have to pay a water bill because it is a suburban farm. I do not have a well. I'm not even allowed to get a well. I can do rain catching, and I started a little rain catching project, and then I started a bigger rain catching project. But when you're in a stage 5 drought, there's just not going to be any rain to catch. So you're going to have to pay extra water. There's really no way around it. You can go with plants that don't need water, but again, in a stage 5 drought, you're going to have to do something. The first year, our philosophy on watering is the first year we plant it, if it's a perennial, we water it. That's why you see water hoses everywhere. They're for first year plantings. Once it's had about a year, some species may require 2, but once it's had its establishment period, we're done. We don't, it's sink or swim. If it dies, we replace it with a crop that's better suited. And that's how my experimentation has gone. A lot of trial and error. It gets expensive. It's not for everyone. If you're trying to reduce the cost, I advise do everything from seed. I didn't do everything from seed. Some stuff I bought already started, especially the California wildflowers. Why would you do that? Well, it saves you time. You can spend your way out of having to wait for the delivery of a crop. You can buy a plant that's already had all the time spent in the nursery to get sprouted, to get a root base, and it gives you like a jump on when you're going to be able to produce your crop. If you buy a 2-year-old tree, then you don't have to wait as long to get fruit. So I was trying to get crops in the ground and try to hurry up and get some kind of production. That's not something I think I would repeat. I think I would just take my time. It's probably worth it if you got the time. So there we go. That was the flower bed. That's all that survived. I'm just taking a look at a pear tree. This pear tree it's been in the ground for 3 years, and it required supplemental watering. So even though I said I don't water except for first year plantings, this year was the first year that we had to water outside of that. And if you read the stage 5 drought description on the website for Texas, the government website, it says widespread crop loss even with irrigation. And we are no different. Although we did pretty good. We didn't lose that much. Some old trees that have been here for years and years. And that's why I started watering older trees that have been established and broke my rule this year. So that about doubled my water bill. So it cost me around $300, maybe $400 for the whole summer to keep everything alive. And I lost most of the crop. So no fruit hardly off any of the perennials doing that level of watering. If I wanted fruit, I would have had to spend a lot more money and do a lot more. But fortunately, since my bread and butter for this, if I'm wanting to make money, is not really tied into the crop yield, it doesn't really affect me. It just affects how much more extra money I have to spend on my grocery bill, which I guess it does affect me. So there you go. That's my philosophy on watering. That's what I was trying to do with this flower bed. That's how it failed. Some of it is neglect. I should have spent time out here. I had some flowers planted over there that as these trees got bigger and it got shaded, I should have propagated them into more sunny areas and managed that better. But all in all, they were always more work than the rest of my more native or naturalized crops. So I don't know. I may try this experiment again. We'll see. But a little bit more information about the goals of my farm or yard. How I'm trying to. This is not one of those situations where I have some kind of delusion where I think I'm going to make $200K a year growing stuff out of my yard. This is more just for retirement, have a activity and maybe a passive income stream. Reduce my grocery bill, eat healthier, know where my food comes from. Since it's right here in my backyard, I don't have to spend gasoline to drive down the store, be a little bit less impactful on the environment. And turn my yard from a cost into a kind of an asset, I guess. And I think if you weigh me against those goals, it's a success, which is all I was trying to do. So I'm going to get back on it. I'm going to continue to work on this, finish it. I'm not my vision for what I wanted to do is not complete. And it'll probably take about another 5 years or so to hit peak production. I only started this about 5 years ago. I've gardened and farmed my whole life, but doing it this way only about 5 years ago. I've always been into wild edibles and whatnot. I do backpacking and stuff, so I've always had some knowledge of it. And when I bought extra property to attach to this yard, I wasn't so foolish with just mowing everything down and trying to create a conventional, keep up with the Joneses type yard. So, we learn. All right, I hope you enjoy that. I hope that the philosophies I have behind what I'm trying to do, make sense to you. I hope that it's something that maybe you want to do. My goal also is to, anybody that wants to hear, spread as much information as I have to try to make everybody's yard a little bit more environmentally friendly, maybe give them a little bit more enjoyment. And personally, I think it looks prettier than just having a bunch of invasive grass laid out and mowed to 2 inches high. But I guess beauty is in the eye of the beholder on that one. So hopefully you like this type of philosophy. Hopefully this is something you want to do. Hopefully you live somewhere here in North Texas and we can start one yard at a time, maybe a small revolution of sorts. And maybe I've picked up a few techniques that you don't hear elsewhere with the way I do the succession on the trees and the dwarfing and managing them for shade instead of spending money for shade cloth. Another goal of the farm is to be self-sufficient, completely self-sufficient, where all of the product that gets produced is supported by whatever I produce on this property. I don't buy outside inputs, for instance. I'm almost there. Water is an outside input. I'll build a lot more on rain catching, and one of the things I built is I started to dig an in-ground rain catch, a pond, so to speak, about 20 foot in diameter. But I only dig in it when it rains, and we've been in stage 5 drought, so not a lot of rain. So I might give you a video, a time lapse of me digging that thing. And you can see when it rains, I'll show you how all the water flow happens, how I've managed the water flow. In a permaculture landscape, it really is about slowing down the water. I'll show you what I've been able to accomplish on that front. But I wanted to do a video that explains some of the goals, what I'm trying to do with this yard, and then kind of do that with the backdrop of failure, because if you're going to do something like this, unless you're an expert, don't be afraid of that failure. So I came back out to shoot a little add-on to my flower bed video. I wanted to make a mention of some flowers that came real close to succeeding. Stargazer lilies, australomeriums. That's about it. Of course, if you look here, I have things like comfrey in this garden bed, and I had one at the base of every tree. You see, these last 2 trees don't have it. To kill comfrey once it's established it's not an easy task. And so why did these die? Well, a good portion of why a lot of these failed could be due to neglect. As far as the names of all these, I have an earlier video that had the names. So unfortunately, you'll have to watch that, and so will I, to get some of them, to get some of those names. I know I had some anemones in here. I had some delphiniums, and it's worth mentioning that some of them may actually still be alive. Some of these are bulbs, and when they died back, I think it was due to dryness, due to neglect. I didn't water any of this bed at all. So, it's possible some of these may come back, and I may get lucky. So, just keep some of that in mind. And I have an earlier video that I made on this back line here, and I'm going to post another one on some other beds. And it's important to keep in mind on what isn't in the video. Dormant crops. There are loads of dormant crops that I failed to mention because I don't see them. And so what I'll do is I'll do videos throughout seasons to show what comes up at various seasons. Potatoes, turmeric, garlic, onions, things like that. So, and it's probably important to also mention, I mentioned the stage 5 drought, but what I didn't point out is that it's going to stunt everything. So every crop you see in my current videos, especially if it's an annual, keep in mind that it's stunted. For instance, normally this Malabar spinach on this tree, there's usually about 10 plants that come up, and the tree is covered up to about here. That's roughly around 15 feet, just completely covered in green and food. So it just shows the impact of the drought. I'll give a quick walk just to drive home the point, the impact of a drought, at least a drought this severe, and what it does to the crop size. I showed a blackberry, I showed you the canes, and I leave some of the dead canes up in the video. You can pay attention to those, you'll see. But also here, Jerusalem artichokes. It's a whole bed full of them. You see the fence behind is about 6 feet. You can tell these are around 3 feet tall at the tallest. Normally this time of the year, they're as tall as the fence, sometimes taller, most of the time taller, actually. So just everything that you see in this video is going to be stunted because we're filming at the end of a pretty harsh summer. So wanted to point that out. It's not something I mentioned directly, explicitly, but just try to keep that in mind.